what exactly we are dealing with as a country, or where we are at with the fight against drugs and substance abuse. So remember, you can share with us your feedback. Our SMS line is open as well on 23059. You can also send us a message through our WhatsApp number, which will be on your screen in any minute from now, on just your thoughts are, because this is something that the Deputy President has really picked up and decided he will go with it, and this is the hill that he dies on. So will he manage that fight? Because we're looking at about 26,000 people across the country that do inject themselves with either heroin or cocaine or among other drugs. We're also looking at statistics of about 2.5% of the country's population that are struggling with the drug addiction. Now in males, we are at 4.8%, and in females, we are at 0.6%. So that is the conversation this morning, and I'd love to introduce my guest in studio. That is Damaris Mwithiga, who is a psychological counselor, but her specialty is on addiction counseling. Thank you very much for your company this morning.
You're welcome.
Right, now before we get into it, I'd love us to listen to the Deputy President who was in Mombasa County, and he just spoke about this particular menace and says the police are amongst the people that have relaxed with this fight against drug and substance addiction. So let's listen into that to give you some bit of context before we come back and proceed with this conversation.
What we are saying, those drug barons ni kushikwa na kutupwa nyuma ya Land Cruiser, not Subaru anymore.
As enemies of Kenya, we consider them as participants in organized crime, and therefore we have placed them on the same category where we have placed terrorists, extremists, and bandits. There is no difference. What terrorists are doing to our country, the harm that other organized criminals are doing to our country, including bandits, is the same harm that those who are manufacturing, transporting, selling, distributing, and encouraging drugs and alcohol are doing to our country.
A sharp focus. Rogue security and officers of other security agencies, state agencies, have been compromised in corruption by merchants of death for far too long. Brewers of poisonous alcohol, drug peddlers, and barons belong to jail. State officers abetting this illegal trade have no room under this administration. Your time is up. You have two choices: to work or simply just walk away.
Right, so that was the press briefing that was in Mombasa, or at least the conference that was in Mombasa, that basically laid the picture of what exactly we're dealing with. And if you'd listen into the Cabinet Secretary for Interior, he says he equates that to terrorism acts in the country. Does that define what we are dealing with, Damaris?
Yes, thank you, Cynthia. I'll start by saying that, yes, we are not in a very good place in Kenya right now due to the drug and substance abuse. The situation is pathetic. And as the CS, Interior Security, has said, I would term it as a national pandemic. We are in a bad spot, in a bad place, because people are dying every day. When you listen to the news here and there, every day, everywhere in Kenya, especially in central Kenya, the coast province, the coastal region of Kenya, people are using drugs and substances all through and through, and people are dying every day.
Yeah.
So I would concur with him that yes, we are in a bad spot, we're in a bad place, and something needs to be done. And I must commend the job that is being done by the Deputy President and his wife. They are doing a very good job. They're trying the best that they can to help people who are already in drug and substance use disorders, and to get them rehabilitated. Yes. And at the same time, they are working very hard on prevention and crack down on the people actually who are the suppliers and the dealers in that industry, if we call it an industry. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right, so it's good that you've defined it as a national pandemic. Now I'd love us to go back to a bit of what exactly addiction is, or at least what exactly are these drugs and substances, because people will equate alcohol to that, and then, you know, there's that excessive drinking, there's that regulative drinking. So if we could go back to just understand what is addiction, what exactly do we mean when we say this is somebody that, you know, is abusing drugs or is addicted to drugs? Yeah.
Okay, I'll start by defining what addiction is. Addiction is defined as a chronic, relapsing brain disease. It is a disease because it has signs and symptoms. Addiction is a process. It just doesn't happen in a day. And a disease is defined as anything that alters the normal functioning of the body or any parts or organs of the body. So with addiction, what it does, yes, it does alter mood. It alters mood, it alters thinking, it alters perception. Because once somebody is into the habit and into the behavior of addiction, it takes them off the path of living a normal life. And before they get to addiction, as I have said, it is a process and it is a journey. It is not something that just happens in one day. It is a chronic, it's defined as a chronic disease because once you get into that disease of addiction, the only thing you can be able to do is to manage it. It will not get cured, you will not get a cure out of it, but you can manage it. How do you manage it? The only way you can manage addiction is by staying off of it. How is it a disease? What parts of the body does addiction affect? It affects all parts of the body. It affects the psychological, it affects the emotional, it affects the physical. It starts with the brain. How does it start with the brain? It affects, it's categorized as a mental illness because it affects the brain. How does it affect the brain? I'll teach you a little bit about the neurobiology or the chemistry behind addiction. There's a neurotransmitter or a chemical that regulates the normal functioning of the body through the brain, and the neurotransmitter is called dopamine. Dopamine is a happy hormone. It is a hormone. So when we engage or we indulge in substances, it affects the brain through the chemical in the brain that is called dopamine, which is a happy hormone. So once you start taking substances, it sends a message in the brain that something has been sent to the body, has gone in through the body into the brain. So once you start taking substances, they alter the normal functioning of the brain by interfering with the production of the dopamine in the brain. So as one continues using the substances, the body will be asking for that substance that you use so that it can increase the production of the dopamine. Under normal circumstances, for somebody who doesn't use substances, the brain regulates itself. It knows how much your body needs that particular chemical. So once you start feeding your body with that substance that makes it produce extra dopamine, the body will send a message to the brain that the dopamine level is not enough. So you need more dopamine. As you continue to use substances, you get to a point whereby what you have been using before is not enough for the brain to produce that dopamine, to give you that for the normal functioning of the body. So what happens? The need for that substance continues to increase. And when the need for that substance continues to increase, that is what we refer to as the tolerance level. The tolerance level starts going up. You will find yourself needing more of that substance to give you the same feeling that it gave you before. As the process continues, you will continue to need more of that substance to give you the same feeling. So where does that put you into? It puts you into addiction. And as I said, addiction is a process, it is a journey. For you to get to addiction, addiction has 5 stages. The 5 stages are, the first stage is the experimental stage. You start by experimenting for whatever reason. Maybe you go into a party, you find your friends are using some substances like alcohol. And for your information, I want you to know that alcohol is a drug of choice, is a substance of choice. So you want to experiment and see how does it feel, how does it taste. Stage number 2 is the social stage. You find people who use substances because they are in a particular place whereby they want to fit, and the only way that they would feel that they are fitting in that place is by socializing. So they find themselves that when I go to a certain place, when I go out with my friends, I will find myself taking, and I want as a way of socializing. The 3rd stage in the addiction process is called the instrumental stage, which is divided into 2. We have the hedonistic and we have the compensatory. Hedonistic means pleasure seeking. You're doing it for pleasure. You're at a stage whereby, you've already passed the first and the second, so you're looking for a reason to give you pleasure. So you're doing it for pleasure. Compensatory means that you're looking for a reason to do it. For example, I'll take an example of a youth who has started taking something like marijuana or bangi, and they go home and they have an argument with the let's say maybe the mother, and they want to find a reason for them to just go out and smoke their weed. So they'll be like, I got angry with my mom was calling me, she was calling me, so let me go calm myself down with a puff. So they are looking for a reason. That is what we refer to as compensatory in the 3rd stage of addiction, which is instrumental. The 4th stage is the habitual. This person will find themselves in a situation whereby it has become a habit. Now they're not even looking for any excuse. It has become a habit. Like every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I have to party, I have to have my drug of choice, I have to drink, I have to smoke, it has become a habit. The 5th stage of addiction is the compulsive stage. The compulsive stage is whereby the mind of the person is fixed on getting the substance and recovering from the effects of the same. So it has become a cycle. I drink, I go and recover from the effects of my drinking, and then I go back. Once I have recovered, or I am almost getting done with the recovery, I am thinking of where I'm going to get my next fix. So there are 5 stages in addiction, and the last stage is compulsive. I want you to know that between the 1st and the 3rd stage, experimental, social, and instrumental, the person can be able to get help through counseling. With the 4th and the 5th stage, they need more intense intervention, which might involve inpatient treatment through rehabilitation and detoxification. And once the person gets into the compulsive stage, that is where now it becomes an illness because it has signs and symptoms. What are some of the signs and symptoms of addiction? The person will have withdrawal symptoms, withdrawal syndrome. There'll be tremors, there'll be shaking, there'll be headache, there'll be a lot of mood dysregulation. They'll be not interactive, a lot of withdrawal. And if you're not serious when this person gets to this stage, they are likely to get into mental health disorders. And I want us to know that substance use disorders, which is addiction, they co-occur with mental health disorders. So once somebody gets into that stage, there's a very high chance of them getting into mental health issues.
Right. Now, I'm glad that you've taken us through the stages of what basically happens to an individual. But now, from an addict's point of view, are they aware that they're going through all these stages? Are they aware that they're having relapses and brain disease, and that their mental health is also changing? Can they be able to pinpoint that as an addict themselves?
To some point, to some extent, yes and no. If they have the knowledge from being educated, from getting psychoeducation, then they would be able to know. But not per se, because if they don't have the knowledge of the stages of addiction, then how would they be able to know at what stage they are in? And sometimes I want to believe that they do, because you will hear a statement from most of them, like when you talk to them, they will be like, oh, I'm trying. Oh, I know I have a problem. I want to quit. I am trying to quit. I will quit. But they get back into the same situation. They'll quit for a day, they'll quit for 2 days, and believe you me, yes, they want to quit, and they're trying the best that they can.
Yeah.
But because it is a brain disease, the brain is sending a message to the body, there's something that you give me, you have not given me today, I need it. And that's why they go into withdrawal syndrome. And that is when now the addiction becomes an illness, because the brain is demanding, it is sending a message to the body, and now the person has to act and feed the body with the substance so that it can normalize. I'm sure maybe you've experienced a situation whereby, especially with people who are addicted to alcohol, they go into withdrawal, they have tremors, shakes, convulsions. It goes as bad as convulsions, and once they take their substance, they're okay.
Right.
Yeah. So some of them are aware, some of them are not. And I would say most of them are not, because they don't even know that addiction has stages. They just found themselves in that situation. I started drinking little. I got to this point.
Yeah.
Now I'm at a point whereby I cannot stop. I don't even know what is happening. Most of them, I want to believe, are in that category of they don't even know that there are stages. They don't even know where they are at. They just found themselves in that situation, and they want to come out of it, but they don't know how.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I'd love us to stick with alcohol, because as a country, that might be one of the biggest drug issue that we have. Now, Alice, if we could take a look at that newspaper of just yesterday, which was Tuesday, that spoke of the drug disaster and the fact that alcohol is one of the biggest drug issue that a lot of young people as well as older people are consuming in the country. The drug disaster, there you have it, the drug disaster. Now, just within like 9 months, the country had to pour off 160,000 liters of illicit brew, which begs the question of, are we just simply underestimating alcohol and saying, it's just alcohol? You know, people tend to think, the things like heroin and cocaine and bang are the biggest drug issue. But here it is, we are a country dealing with cases day in, day out of thousands of liters of alcohol that are illicit. Are we underestimating how much of a damage alcohol is doing to our nation?
I want to believe the answer is yes. Number one, because alcohol is under the category of legal drugs. We have illegal and legal. Alcohol is legal. And that is why, to some extent, there's not so much stigma attached to alcohol, because it's a legal drug, it's a legal substance of abuse.
Yeah.
The biggest problem that we're having in Kenya today is because we have a lot of illicit brews in form of alcohol that are falling through the cracks of the system that are not regulated. If you take a substance like the alcoholic beverages that are made by, let's take a company like Kenya Breweries, yes, they cause harm, they cause a lot of addiction, but they are not as bad as the illicit. So I would want to believe and imagine that there's somebody somewhere who is sleeping on their job, but they're not doing what they should be doing to regulate what gets out there in the market to be consumed in form of alcohol. Yeah. And
why alcohol? Is it because it's just easily available? Is it cheap? Why alcohol, to be precise? Because the cases, we've got cases of bang and heroin and cocaine, but one of the biggest issues is just alcohol. Is it because it's easily accessible to the public?
Alcohol is easily accessible, and like I have said, it's legal. So you don't need to be out there hiding as you're consuming the alcohol. And unfortunately, as I have said, the production of alcohol to an extent of second generation, I want to believe now we're in the third generation, has fallen through the cracks of the people who are supposed to be regulating the production of the same substance to identify how should I use the word potent? How good is it to be out there in the market? And then with the production of the illicit brews, it's coming at a very cheap cost. easily available anywhere and at a cheap cost. If you would if you would check or look at how much the alcohol or the alcoholic beverages that are produced by these big companies are, as opposed to the ones that are produced, the illicit brews, if you would look at the cost, it's not the same. You would find that they get like a 250 ml of the illicit brew at even 100 shillings. You cannot get any of the bottled alcoholic beverages at that cost. So it's easily accessible and at a cheap price. And at the same time, it is the alcohol content in it, the alcohol level in it is very high. And that is now what is causing all the problems and the addiction, because now once you have taken that alcoholic beverage whose alcohol content is high compared to one that is low, it sends you straight into the compulsive stage of addiction, as opposed to the one whose level is low, meaning that you become, your tolerance level goes very high, such that when you take this one that whose alcohol content is low, will not give you the same effect as this one whose alcohol content is high.
Right. Now, when we began this broadcast, you spoke of prevention and crackdown, and now there's an all-out war of crackdown on illicit brews, or at least persons that are either engaging, promoting, distributing, or drugs. So for the prevention, where should we start as a nation in preventing how people use and abuse drugs? Where do we start from? What is the first thing that we need to do?
The first thing we need to do is do a lot of sensitization as early as possible. And when I say as early as possible, I mean as early as with those children who are in primary schools. Talk about it. Now there's nothing to hide about what is happening. Let's talk about the consequences, the effects, the damage, as early as to those children who are in elementary schools, in primary schools, as early as grade 1. In fact, NACADA has these booklets that they give out for free for education, for prevention for children who are in schools. They have them for as low as children who are age 7 to 8. I think they start from age 7 to 8, 9 to 10, like that. And they come in picture forms, such that when you talk to that child about alcohol and substances, they can even see the pictures on the booklet, and you explain to them in a way that that child at that level will be able to understand. We need to do a lot of sensitization, we need to do a lot of education, psychoeducation in schools, in public places, in hospitals, everywhere, in the community, to children as early as even 7 years, because they'll be able to understand. So what I'm saying is a lot of sensitization, a lot of education, and a lot of talking about it.
So sensitization is the only thing that will work in the prevention against it.
Sensitization,
What about crackdown? Because we're looking at a scenario where we are shutting down places and nabbing persons that are responsible. Does this completely, cut it off, or does it aggravate those who perhaps are involved and feel like, they can't stop us, we need to keep on doing this? Does the crackdown also work?
The crackdown will work one way or the other. It might not completely solve the problem, but it will work one way or the other, because at the end of the day, there's a message that is being sent out there to the distributors, to the manufacturers, to the dealers. There's a message that is being sent out there that business is not as usual now. Things are not the same way they were yesterday. Something is happening. So a message is being sent out there, and that message will need a lot of consistency. A lot of consistency over a long period of time, because for change to occur, as I have said, addiction is a process. Even for the crackdown to occur and for us to see results and for a change to come, it has to be consistent, not a hit and run thing. Okay? It's good that the government has taken the initiative, and more so the Vice President is very, very particular and very passionate about it, together with his wife. They're very passionate about cracking down and bringing down this menace of substance use disorders and addiction. That is a first step towards dealing with the situation, so that they can be able, and the government can be able to send a message to those people who are doing it. Once they see what is happening has happened to one or two of them, I'm sure another one person will rethink twice about whether they want to continue in the same business or not. Or, unfortunately, some people learn through experience. Some might be waiting for them to get to that point of experiencing, which might not be very good for them, because I want to believe that the government that we are having today is doing something about cracking down and bringing down the issues of addiction in our country today. They are doing something about it, and they are very passionate about it, and I want to believe that something is going to bear fruits out of what they are doing. Yeah, so it's a good starting point.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about the statistics at least, because 4.8% of male are engaging in use of drugs, while we're looking at 0.6% of females. So basically, men are doing it more.
Yeah.
But also in terms of the region, Central Kenya leads with 4.1%, Coastal region 3.2%, you've got the Rift Valley with 3.1%, then Nairobi, Nyanza, Eastern and Western. But there's an issue with Central Kenya, and as much as we are focusing on Central Kenya, it's also a question of let us not also forget these other regions that are recording cases. What is happening in Central Kenya?
Central Kenya, we have a very serious problem in Central Kenya. As the statistics have shown, we cannot dispute what has been proven through statistics. There's a lot of young people in Central Kenya, especially men, who have lost hope.
Yeah.
And behind every addiction, there's an underlying root cause. What is the underlying root cause? Within our youth, within our men in Central Kenya, number one is lack of jobs. So when somebody gets out of job, or they are not working, or they have studied, they have qualified, they have their credentials, and they are not getting jobs, they become frustrated. They don't know what to do. And unfortunately, most of our, I don't know whether it is the orientation of our men in Central Kenya or something, that once they get frustrated, they lack coping mechanisms, coping skills to deal with their frustrations, that the next exit route for them becomes alcohol. They run into substances, and before you know it, you find yourself in the route, you find yourself in addiction. The major cause of those high numbers in Central Kenya, I would attribute it to lack of jobs, frustration, and you see one thing leads to another. You will find that when somebody loses a job and they don't know what to do, they don't know where to go, they don't have a livelihood, they don't have a source of income, they become frustrated. When they lack coping mechanisms and coping skills, that's when they run into their addictions. Before you know it, things start falling apart. They lose their families. Once somebody loses their family, they become hopeless. I would actually say the other reason is hopelessness. They don't have hope for tomorrow. So they just find themselves in addiction. And it's a very unfortunate state of affair, because we are losing a lot of young people, a lot of young men, to be specific. A lot of young men in Central Kenya are dying from the menace of alcoholism. Even if it's not from the illicit brews, it's from the progression of the illness. Like in the area that I come from, we have, within the last 3 months, I think we have already buried 4 people from complications from alcoholism.
Right, and do we run a risk of these other regions catching up quickly as well with just how we're recording cases in Mount Kenya? Because Nyanza region is there. We're looking at the coastal region, which is the second most highest region that is recording cases. You're also looking at Western Kenya. Do we run a risk that if we do not fight this right from the prevention stage, we're looking at coastal now also recording cases, higher cases and more cases? Is that what is basically what we are envisioning now?
Yes, there's a very high likelihood, because in general, the cost of living in Kenya is high. There are no jobs. People are getting laid off every day, every now and then. People are getting frustrated every now and then. People are getting educated every day with no jobs. So there's a very high likelihood that the other parts of Kenya are going to get equally affected as central Kenya unless we take drastic measures against the production of those illicit brews and do a lot of prevention measures and do a lot of education to our people on the effects and the consequences of taking those illicit brews.
Yeah.
But yes, the answer is yes, we are not in a very good safe place, even in the other parts of Kenya, because whatever is happening in central Kenya, in terms of hopelessness, frustration levels, I want to believe it's happening elsewhere in the other parts of Kenya. So yeah. Now
let's speak of the effects. You know, financially there will be the effects of you using that particular drug, because eventually you don't want to buy unga, you want to buy that because you can't live without it. So it has got its own financial aspects or economic effects for that. But what about the psychological part of it? Because what happens when one person, for example, in my family, is dealing drugs or alcohol? What are the effects of some of us that are around him as well as for him himself? Yeah.
When somebody gets into that stage of compulsive use of substances, as I said, it's a disease. They need to be treated as sick people. And once somebody is sick in the family, when one person is sick in the family, the rest of the family becomes sick. With addiction, it's very tricky because most of us don't take it as an illness. We're not taking it as a disease, as an illness, and it is a mental illness. So what happens is this person will keep dragging the rest of the members of the family together with them. For example, we are dealing with somebody who is abusing alcohol, and they're in a compulsive stage. Some of the things that will happen, even if it's not even alcohol, even with the other substances, one of the things that will happen is that when they run out of resources to get their fix, to get their substance of choice, they will start picking stuff from the home.
Yeah.
You'll start selling things. And when they start doing that, that affects the whole family. You will live in the fear of, quote unquote, we have a thief in the home. Because things will start disappearing, they'll start selling things so that they can get money, or they'll go and exchange whatever things with the substances that they are using. So it affects the whole family. You get into a point whereby when this person is out there, you don't know what will happen to them. You don't know whether they'll get knocked by the car. You don't know whether they are sleeping in the ditches. You don't know what is happening out there. You don't know whether they'll engage in fights, because all these are things that happen with person who is in compulsive use. They have lost control. They have lost control of themselves. So addiction becomes a family disease. It affects everybody in the family, because you will not have that peace. You will not have that peace in terms of you don't know where your loved one is. You don't know what is happening to them. You don't know whether you will be called when they are alive or they are dead. You don't know. You have to safeguard your property, you have to safeguard your utensils, you have to safeguard whatever you have, because you don't know what time they will come and pick something and go and sell it, or in exchange for their drug of for their substance of use. So it becomes a family disease, and it brings a lot of now dysfunctionalities in the family, because now you're all fixated onto this person who is sick, and you're trying to find a solution, but at the same time, in as much as you're trying to find a solution, you are not aware that it is an illness, it is a disease that needs treatment just like any other disease. So without that knowledge that is an illness and it's a disease, you will ridicule this person, you will label them, you will call them all sorts of names, you will feel as if this person is pretending they can be able to snap out of their addiction, like same way you snapped in, you can snap out of it, which is not the case. So you will find a lot of conflict between the person who is abusing the substances and the family, because the family lack the understanding and they lack the knowledge and the skills on how to deal with this person who is sick.
And you know, ultimately it also reflects on the crime rate as well in the country, because you're looking at sexual violence, you're looking at intimate partner violence, you're looking at, you know, so many violence just happening around. But the one that records the highest cases, at least, of crimes reported is intimate partner violence, which basically means is somebody that I call my spouse, or somebody that I call my boyfriend or my husband or my wife is the one that is engaged in the alcohol or at least the drug usage. So people should be really looking out for their spouses. I mean, that's perhaps the closest person or where you can start, this talks about managing this menace, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, because as I said, when this person gets to the compulsive stage, it is an illness now. And the first thing that we need to do, even as now I am talking about it, I'm sensitizing whoever is watching, the public, that addiction is an illness. Once you start looking at it from that perspective, then you'll be able to understand this person better. And it is a mental illness. Under the DSM, Diagnostic Statistical Manual for Mental Illnesses, it is classified as a mental illness. So once you start looking at this person as somebody who is sick, then you'll be able to understand them. You'll be able to identify with the position that they are in, and you will be able to acknowledge that this person is sick. And what do you do with a sick person? You take them to a hospital. You seek help for them. You stop condemning them. You stop fighting with them. When you talk about intimate partner domestic violence, it's because it's coming from a point of even people not understanding. When your spouse comes home drunk, they have not provided. They will go tomorrow, they will go out tomorrow, they will get whatever money they get, they take it back into the system of addiction. And when they find you home, you're not understanding that this person is sick. There's going to be a fight, of course. You're going to fight, you're not going to be happy, you're not going to sit there and start laughing with this person. But when you understand that this is a cycle, and this person is already in the 5th stage of the cycle, then the best thing that you can do for this person, number one, is to understand them, empathize with them, and then seek help for them. Seek help for them because help is there. You can take them for counseling, you can take them for detox. There's a lot of, there's a couple of government institutions that are doing detox for free.
Perhaps you can mention them as well.
Like Mathare Hospital. Mathare Hospital is a very good hospital, and it has a very good rehabilitation center. They do detox, and they do, I'm forgetting the name of it, it will come to me. Okay. They do detox, and they do treatment for people who are in addiction, especially people who are using heroin and these hard drugs. They go to get some medication and some injection that will help them in the process of recovery. And something that I need to mention real quick, besides the alcohol, you can go through the 5 stages of addiction. With the hard substances, heroin, cocaine, you move from the experimental stage to the addiction stage. It doesn't go through the 4 stages. It doesn't go through the 4 stages. You move from the first stage to the last stage. Once you take it the first time, you become automatically addicted. So you need to be very aware, even as you're getting yourself into the use and the abuse, you need to be very aware what you're getting yourself into. For those who are already in the system of addiction, there's help. Help is out there. You can go for detox, especially in government hospitals. A lot of level 4 hospitals are starting those services of detox and counseling services. They are there. So you can go, you can seek help, you can go for counseling. If you are in between stage 1 and stage 3, counseling will work for you. Because what you need to do is to identify what is the underlying root cause. And unless you get to the underlying root cause, what got you into the path of addiction, and then you work with it. Was it coping mechanism? Was it stress? Was it you got laid off from a job and you are not able to deal with it? So counseling would work. And besides counseling, for those who are in stage 4 and 5, they can get detox and inpatient treatment for 90 days. They need 90 days inpatient treatment so that they can get on the track towards recovery.
Right. Yeah. And I'm so glad that you've been able to pinpoint out about the hard substances because, as you said, you quickly move from just that experimenting all the way to the addiction stage. Does it also give a different approach to how you counselors deal with an addict, whether or not they're using the hard substance or they're just using alcohol? Does it change how you deal with that?
No, it doesn't change, because for counseling intervention, it's just counseling intervention. You just need to do what you need to do. It doesn't matter what you're using, but of course, to begin with, you have to identify. You have to do screening to identify what the person is taking, what the client is taking, and then you do assessment. Assessment determines how much of what they are taking. So it doesn't matter whatever they are taking, whether it's hard drugs or alcohol or cigarette or marijuana, it doesn't matter what they are taking. You just deal with the client on an individual basis and give them the interventions that are needed. Yeah.
All right, now let's speak on the NACADA factor as well, the National Authority for the Campaigns Against Alcohol and Drug Abuse. That is NACADA, the governing body that is tasked with campaigning against the use of alcohol and drugs abuse. Have the campaigns worked so far? If you just look at the numbers, are they working, or is there more to be done?
There's more to be done. Definitely, there's more to be done, because if they're working, we would be seeing the rates going lower and going down. But unfortunately, it seems like the rates have gone up, and unfortunately, with death rates, mortality rates, people are dying so much from the substances. So there's a lot that needs to be done. We cannot sleep. We need to wake up very fast and hit the ground running and do a lot more of prevention, because the main job for NACADA is to do prevention through sensitization. Schools do a lot of education, educate people on the different types of substances and their potential for addiction. So yes, we need to do a lot more, and until the rates go down and go lower, and the hope would be to eradicate substance use, then we can say we are at a safe space. But as for now, there's a lot more that needs to be done.
Right.
Yeah.
And I have to point this out. We've got the new health insurance that is coming in, that is the SHIF, and one of the outpatient services packages on mental health rehabilitation. How long, of a fight will that, help? Because initially you would never access mental health with just an NHIF, with the SHF now, at least we'll be able to go to a hospital and say, oh, this one needs a mental health check, or at least being rehabilitated, and your card will be able to pay for it. Does that also help in the fight? Oh
yes, it will. It will help a lot, because number one, it means that with the insurance carrier accepting that we have mental health issues, then we are getting rid of the stigma. People will feel more comfortable, will feel at ease to walk into a hospital and say, I have a mental health issue. What will be done, or what will happen, is that people will normalize mental health issues. It is okay not to be okay. I am not okay, so I'm not okay mentally, so it is okay for me not to be okay. And now with the health insurance cover, people will be at ease to walk into a facility and ask for help and get the help that they need. That will be a plus, especially now for people who can not even be able to afford going into mental health facilities. The only mental health facility that I know at the top of my head, especially around Nairobi, is the Mathari Hospital. That is a public institution that you can walk in with subsidized payment or subsidized fee. The other mental health facilities, they're expensive, and if you don't have an insurance cover, not so many people will afford to go there. Now, with the insurance cover that will cater for the mental health part, it's a plus. So I want to believe that we'll have more people wanting to come out and getting the help, because the payment and the treatment will be covered.
All right.
Yeah.
So to wrap this conversation up, Damaris, perhaps you could give details of somebody that has just watched and says, oh, I need those services, or at least I know somebody that I can recommend your services. So where can they access you? How do they get in touch with you?
Okay. Thank you, Cynthia. My name is Damaris Mwethiga, a counseling psychologist who has specialized in addiction counseling. You can get in touch with me. Please feel free to get in touch with me. My number is 0722 36 4051, 0722 364051. I work under an institution called GOGADY, GOGADY, Springs of Wellness Counseling Services. GOGADY, Springs of Wellness counseling services.
Yeah.
And I am located in Kino Shopping Center on Genesis Building. You can call me for an appointment. Please, kindly feel free. There is help. We can help, and we can get you back on track to normalcy and living a normal life.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, living a normal life. So thank you, Damaris Mwithiga, for coming in this morning to speak on the menace of drugs and substance abuse. Perhaps we need to take a look one more time at that headline, because it is a headline that really spoke volumes of the situation that we're in right now, and that was on the Standard paper for Tuesday, which was yesterday, the drugs disaster, because that lays a picture of what we are, where we are at as a country. There you have it. So basically from that paper, the statistics that we got was that, you know, at the national rate, we're having 2.5% of the population that is dealing with drugs and substance abuse. In urban areas, we're looking at 3.6%. In rural areas, we're looking at 1.9%. Regions or counties that are recording the highest number of cases include Kiambu, Nairobi, Kilifi, Kwale, and Mombasa. And so from what I've read, 3 counties from the coastal region are recording high cases. Well, we've got Nairobi and Kiambu, which are basically neighboring counties. So that headline should give you food for thought on what you are doing as an individual in the fight against drug and substance abuse. And we are hoping that, you know, eventually we'll be able to look at the reduction of numbers step by step, because we cannot afford to have lives taken daily. Just recently, we had about 23 people die in Kirinyaga County after consuming illicit brew. That is in one day. So think about 10 days. So that is a conversation that definitely should be had around. So thank you very much for your company this morning. Thank you for watching. In case you've missed this broadcast, you can rewatch it across our social media platforms on EBN TV. Keep the conversation going. What more should we do? What more can be done? What more should the NACADA and the government do, as well as councillors like Damaris here, to help in the sensitization against this menace? So thank you for watching. I'm Cynthia Nanjala. Do enjoy the rest of your programming.